that has got its own members that they talk to. Hence, before this meeting, I phoned SAMA leadership to say what is their view on this matter, especially on the court matter as it is. And Professor Rees is putting it rightfully so that there's no unanimity amongst doctors, but the body that represents them in the country is saying the stance and the approach taken by SAHPRA, they are actually in full support. Now, I think we need to be therefore saying we then have to agree to be cautious in that and assist, because whatever happens, they would be responsible for the safety of our citizens. Now, we need to also not push them beyond what they have. Whatever it takes, yes, we will do this, that, and the other. Let us work with them. If it means we get SAHPRA to continuously update us, so be it. But we shouldn't be those public representatives that are pushing them to one corner and leave the other corner that is also not actually saying the same thing. So maybe on the issues of vaccines and that Russian vaccine, and maybe then sharing with you that I am very hopeful that before end of the day tomorrow, I might be coming back to you regarding when the minister can come and brief us. With those, can I get Professor Rees and her team to come back and that have been asked by members? But before that, let me check if Honorable Munyai is able to now connect. Honorable Munyai is still struggling. Go ahead, Professor Rees.
Thank you very much. And I think just to say that this has been an incredibly important and helpful conversation. Not easy, I agree. And one of the things that strikes me, and I'm just saying on behalf of SAHPRA as an entity, we would be delighted to come and have more of these discussions, both formally and informally. Because I think that one of the things that it highlights for me is that we probably haven't done a good enough job in explaining to the public what a regulator does and why it's so important. And I think behind the scenes, having an effective drug regulatory authority is one of the most important pillars of an effective health system. Because all of us we don't really think about it, but we go to a pharmacy, we get admitted to hospitals, or our relatives do, we go to a clinic, a GP. We assume that the medicine that we get is indeed going to work, that it's of good quality, that what the box says is in that medicine is indeed in that medicine. The vaccines we give our children, the same, that they're going to work and they're of good quality and they're safe. We assume all of that, and that can only be true if we have a strong drug regulatory authority. And I think to really just to commend the Secretariat and the CEO of SAHPRA and those who came before her, is that indeed we do have that. We're lucky to have that in South Africa, and we absolutely have to maintain it. If you lose this, then as some of the honourable members said, you open yourself up for things like counterfeit vaccines even, where people are making money by selling saline, and you have an unregulated marketplace. And we cannot allow that to happen. And that is SAHPRA's absolute aim. We are there to serve the public. So that's just a sort of general issue. And I mean, as I'm speaking to a parliamentary group, I cannot help but to say this to everybody. If you were to ask us, do we need more funding? Yes, we do. We understand the fiscus is under enormous strain, but it is incredibly important that we are properly funded. And we're doing a lot on the budget that we have. But there's a lot more that we would like to do if that was possible. But we understand we are where we are. But I would just take that opportunity. The second point I want to make, just listening to colleagues, is I want to just say something about sort of COVID as a disease and why this is complicated. And it does refer to ivermectin. Because ivermectin's raised not only for itself, but it's raised a whole lot of issues. So if we look at COVID, we could almost divide it into sort of 5 different, not diseases, but areas where we could intervene. One is prevention. The second one is early treatment, the ambulant patient, the people who the GPs and the clinics are looking after who don't need hospitals. Then the third 3 groups are people in hospital, those that need oxygen, those that don't need oxygen, and those that need to be ventilated. And the interventions and treatments for those 5 areas are different. So you need a lot of data for any one drug for any one of those areas. So just because a drug works, say, for a ventilated patient like dexamethasone, doesn't mean that we would give it for prevention, doesn't mean we would give it for an ambulant patient, for example. So there's a whole continuum, and we need to know, and we don't have enough answers yet. I think everyone, every clinician, every researcher would say this has to be an ongoing project. It's incredibly important. And we are very sympathetic to people who are saying that they are desperate and they're looking for possible solutions to enhance what's available. Unfortunately, what we cannot say at the moment is that ivermectin saves lives. I'm going to just go back to that equipoise. It's really important people understand this. We have equipoise, which means it's like a seesaw. We're neither there nor there. We don't have enough data to say, yes, it works for any one of those 5 categories, or no, it doesn't work. We are sort of sitting like this, and we need more data from better trials for every one of those 5 categories before we can say, you can use it here, you can use it there. And then we would need to be also able to say to you, what is the dose? How frequently do you give it? And so on. All of the things that you're familiar with, everyone who's ever taken a tablet knows. You have a dose, you have a number of days. All of that would need to be resolved. We are not there yet, but what we are trying to do is ensure safety and in terms of access in the meantime, while we're sitting waiting for additional data to come through. The other thing I just want to say on vaccines, one of the questions was on the, what are we approving and what role does SAHPRA have in approving vaccines according to the efficacy of the vaccines. So just to give you a sort of spectrum, the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines were sitting at about 95%. AstraZeneca was about 70%. The Sputnik vaccine data came out yesterday at about 90%. The Novavax vaccine was about 60% for HIV negative people, but dropped to just around, hovering just below 50% for the whole population. And the J&J vaccine overall is 66%. Now, those are what's come out of the clinical trials, big differences. The worry is, what is the variant? What is the impact of the variant with these different vaccines? And we can't say it's going to be the same impact with every vaccine, because each vaccine is made differently and is targeting different parts of the response to the virus. So we can't say what that impact will be, but we have to look continuously at that data, and we're working closely with scientists. There's also a Ministerial Advisory Committee on vaccines and an entire technical working group that's looking at this question as well. So I'm just sharing with you that this is going to be a very critical area where we are really going to need our public representatives. We're going to need to be able to explain this to you. And we obviously haven't done a good enough job. We need to do more. We're very happy to do more of that. But it will be a changing pattern. And you'll see us say something today, and with new data, we might say something tomorrow. So we would certainly look to your support and a dialogue so that we all understand what it is we're saying and why we're saying it. So that those are just sort of some top levels. But just to say that we are ring-fenced in what we do. We're a regulator. We're a regulator that does regulatory things, but we're not the doer for programs or the doer for research. But thank you again. We really, really appreciate your time. And listening to the spectrum of views is extremely important to us, because we're a regulator who is sensitive and working within our South African context. Thank you very much.
Is there Dr. Boitumelo coming back? No, you were closing, Professor Rize.
No, I think she was going to answer just some of there were some specific questions you raised on tenders and what was the role, had we had a role in the tendering requirements, etc. I think Tumi was going to come in here.
Thank you very much, Chair. I also wanted to find out if the other members of the board, being Prof. Shabir and Ms. Mandisa Hela, maybe wanted to comment before I go in and provide more specific information. Prof. Shabir?
Thank you, Tumi, and thank you, Honourable Chair and Honourable Members, for the questions. I think perhaps just a few responses. One of them was around the question of approval of vaccines versus the procurement strategy. I think it's perhaps important to reflect that many countries in the world, in fact, most of the countries that are already rolling out vaccine programs had submitted orders for procurement of vaccines many months ago. In fact, for many countries, whilst the vaccine was still under development.
Hello, say hello.
But in
and a lot of your
sorry, Honourable Chair, can you hear me now?
We can hear you. Is the camera that is not in the right direction? Just look at my camera and push it here so that we see more of you than your books.
Is that better now?
Stay there, stay like that, yes.
So I think the issue around procurement of vaccines is one that has to recognize global supply and demand, as well as countries' needs to have vaccine access as quickly as possible. So we found globally that many countries had put orders in for vaccines months ago, while the regulators in those countries also were looking at mechanisms to expedite the approval. And I think the same is in South Africa. It's important to bear in mind, Chair, that SAHPRA will only allow the importation of a vaccine once it has approved it. But the strategy of the Department of Health to ensure that we have access to vaccines through putting in orders for those vaccines is aligned with SAHPRA's engagement with the Department of Health at the moment. And I think that's actually quite important. I think there was also a question around the distribution of vaccines and what SAHPRA's role in that is. Again, it's important to recognize that when the National Department of Health issues contracts to manufacturers for medicines or to distribution entities, that SAHPRA's regulatory requirements are adhered to. And the NDOH, the Department of Health, will in fact insist on that. It's important as well to recognize that SAHPRA has an oversight role of the entire supply chain in terms of ensuring that that regulatory compliance is adhered to. So when medicines are distributed, there's oversight and compliance with SAHPRA's requirements. SAHPRA will also ensure that medicines are disposed of in an appropriate fashion. And I think the point that was raised by the honourable member is an important one. Perhaps one other question, Chair, around ivermectin and the safety of ivermectin. I think we need to recognize that all medicines have side effects, and ivermectin included. And it's important to ensure that medicines are safe when they're used at the appropriate dose. For ivermectin, the safety issues that, where the view is that the medicine is safe and there've been no problems, is really related to the dose that it's used in the parasitic diseases for which there's a regulatory approval for. In the context of COVID, we have no idea what that safe dose actually is. And we do know that when ivermectin is used in larger doses, the risk of side effects is in fact quite high. That high doses of ivermectin cause neurologic impairments, they cause liver damage, they potentially can cause other allergic reactions as well. So I think the safety of a medicine is really in the context of an approved dose for a particular indication. It also links into the regulator's mandate to ensure that drugs that are effective, safe, and of good quality that are made available to our clinicians and healthcare workers to use. I think part of the confidence that healthcare workers expect is not just that medicines are safe and of good quality, but that they in fact work. And I think that relates to the real issues around the approval of ivermectin by regulatory agencies globally, that the current data still needs to be confirmed. Chair, I'll stop there. I think CEO needs to make additional points as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Honorable Chair, is it okay if I request if maybe our Deputy Chairperson, Mamhela, also maybe wants to comment?
That is in order, Honorable CEO.
Thank you. Mamhela?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, honorable members and CEO. Just to respond to one question that was raised, that how could SAHPRA say a medicine is illegal? In terms of the Medicines Act, anything that is not registered in this country is not supposed to be in the market. That's where that came from. And there are two avenues. One is through registration. The other one is through a dispensation like Section 21 that we have talked about here. Otherwise, we would be in a zoo. We would have anything but everything coming from wherever, flooding our markets. And that's our primary mandate, is to, as has been said, is to protect the public of South Africa by ensuring that the medicine is safe, efficacious, and of quality. The second issue I wanted to maybe just explain a little bit is that generally, when we have all the data up to phase 3 finished, we will register it.
The speaker, please. Can you
Sorry?
see the face of the speaker?
The face. Okay, sorry, I forgot. Let me do that. Thank you. Secondly, when we when normally we get a product to be available in the country, it's when all the phases of the clinical trials have been done, and we are satisfied.
Mamamhela awuthi kuyehlisa futhi camera sibona izibuko nenhloko cha awuthi kuyithoba kancane futhi camera yakho ithobe sibone yeah awehlise futhi sibone kahle starting the whole face.
Angas buyavela ke manje. I'm a little technologically challenged, I'm sorry. The other issue I wanted to raise is generally when we've got information from all the phases of the clinical trials, the 3 phases of the clinical trials, we will register a medicine and it's registered and there's no qualm, but we monitor it throughout its life cycle. In this case, as many speakers before me have said, that there's been a rush to get these vaccines on the market, and some work is still being done on the phase 3 trial, though there's some data that has come out, has made it impossible for us to say we have registered these vaccines. That's why we are getting them in through a Section 21 dispensation. And as data comes out and is sufficiently robust to satisfy us as a regulator, we will fully register. And this is something that has been done across the globe. There's something that is other countries are calling early use access or early use authorization. In our law, we don't have an early use clause. So we are using Section 21 to provide and to ensure that we have access, having satisfied ourselves as far as is humanly possible at this stage of development to assure that there is a safety, efficacy, and quality. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. I just want to maybe address those questions that haven't been addressed, and a lot has already been addressed by our board members, and thank you very much for their input. I think I also just want to restate that we are not involved in the procurement of these products, but our role ends when we've issued the regulatory decision, and then once the product is procured and is available in the country, we do what we then call post-market surveillance, where we look at, is the product safe still? Are we seeing any adverse effects, etc.? So we're not involved in procurement. Yes, the Department of Health, in their tendering process, they ensure that the requirements that they put in there for then the successful bidder would, if there's any regulatory requirements, they would ensure that those are captured in the tender documents. I just want to let me just continue with the vaccine questions, and a number of them have been addressed. I just want to speak to the one around the National Control Lab. So actually, this is a lab that, you know, from a regulatory perspective, reports to SAHPRA. So they are then contracted by SAHPRA to conduct this control, you know, these lot releases, and not only for COVID-19, but they do it for all vaccines, and they'll be doing it for also biologicals. So the report, when it's generated, it's then provided to us as the regulator. And as I've said, they are busy with analysis as we speak, and the lot release will then be issued. So that will definitely be made available to us as the, you know, they're reporting into us, so they will make that available to us. And the vaccines can then not be released until that lot release certificate is issued. In terms of the database for registration of those who are to be vaccinated, again, we don't get involved in that part. Our role is more on the database that we've put in place, the app we've put in place for the reporting of the side effects. So I think, you know, this is a matter that we cannot speak to with authority. We are aware of this. However, it's not within our remit. I'll now move over to, and the point around procurement, I think my colleague spoke to it, and I hope then in the engagement that the Honourable Portfolio Committee members will be having with the Honourable Minister, the clarity on a number of these procurement matters. I'll then address the questions on ivermectin. So in terms of, you know, its purported indication for its use for the prevention of COVID, I've indicated that there is completely insufficient information. And that's why this compassionate access use program will then enable us to get the data. And that's why there's a very stringent reporting mechanism. So we will be able to get sight of, you know, which patients, you know, are faring positively, which are struggling with side effects, etc. So we will continuously monitor that. But as we speak, there's no data to support its use for the prevention of COVID-19. In terms of who is authorized, we've communicated this to the applicants. And because this is not a drug that should be available over the counter for the public, it must only be available under this program. We then communicate to the applicants, who then we indicate to them that this is then the licensed, you know, the authorized and licensed manufacturer, distributor, or wholesaler. Therefore, you know, you utilize that one. We've already had applications wherein they applied through those manufacturers, and we've already authorized. So this is not a product that should be available off the shelf. It should only be available through this access program. And Mamhela spoke to the issue of whether when we made it illegal, etc. I think she addressed that adequately, and also then the vaccine question around the efficacy. In terms of the tender processes, I've indicated that in the requirements, where there is any regulatory compliance that is to be included in the tender process. And when it comes to the disposal of the vials, and this would be included in the protocols. So with and I understand that the department had run a program where they were training those that will be administering these vaccines. And these SOPs are typically in place in terms of how to dispose then the used materials from these vaccines. Then the other matter on ivermectin, in terms of, there was a question around when will the product be available at the healthcare facility. Again, there has to be an application submitted because it's controlled access. We're not going to make this available to all healthcare facilities because, again, not all doctors want to utilize this product. So all of it has to be on the basis of application. We've already received applications of healthcare facilities that want to, and I'll speak to it now when I comment in terms of the breakdown of what we've authorized and what we haven't. So maybe I can go into that immediately. So since we have communicated this program, as I've indicated earlier, some of the numbers that we've received, we've already authorized just about a handful. I've indicated to you that now in February, we've received about 7, which we're busy processing, and we had about 21 in January. The bulk of these 21 that we had in January was before we finalized this compassionate access program. So those applications that we received before we issued this program, we would have rejected them on the basis that we've already shared around the insufficiency of data. Since we have then instituted this program, we're sitting with just about 10, and we've already processed those 10. And of those 10, we've authorized those who are for named patient, and we didn't have to go back and ask for more information. We did have some where they were applying through an unlicensed manufacturer. We've communicated to them that we would, these are the program requires that they apply through a licensed manufacturer, and we will work with them on that one. And then we've got a few that were applications from healthcare facilities. Some we've authorized, some we've had to have them submit to us their certificate of authorization as per the National Health Act. So since the program, this is the profile in essence of what we have received. In terms of the cost, and this is something that we're still discussing internally, but what would happen in the long term as we get the data, as we get the clinical trials, it would then be either continue to make it available under Section 21, or it could then be a registered drug. So we cannot comment, what will happen in the long term because we are still awaiting data on this. And then the last comment I just want to address is around, SAHPRA coming to present to the portfolio committee. I just want to indicate that we haven't received communication to come and present our annual report. We've just checked with our board secretary, and we'll again check with the responsible parties around that, but we had not received an invitation. So we didn't come because we didn't want to. So we'll be very glad to engage. And even with this meeting, it was scheduled for last week, Friday, and then it got moved to today. So, when we are invited, we understand how important these engagements are, how important your time as honorable members is, and we will always avail ourselves. So we're very happy to engage again. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you very much, honorable members. On that last part, we have not written to SAHPRA, but I think it was a reminder, from Honorable Wilson, that over and above processing these urgent and critical matters, we just need to understand and follow their governance processes. So that will come through Dr. Boitumelo to invite you to that work. We'll communicate with you in that regard. Honorable members, and to the leadership led by Professor Rees, you could see the appetite that members had on this matter. We have covered quite a bit, but might not have exhausted. There was an overlap of some of these questions with what we need to get from the minister. We want to thank this leadership of SAHPRA led by Professor Helen Rees and the Deputy Mamuhela. Mamuhela, you must ask the grandchildren to assist you with the camera. Nami, I have relied on them. I don't do it myself. It's not easy, but the grandchildren will be there to help you. We will invite you again, leadership. But for now, we want to thank you. And maybe as you log off, I would really request the members of the portfolio committee to remain behind. There's a matter raised by Honorable Wilson that you can do in-house. Thank you very much. We'll keep in touch with you for other further processes and meetings.
Thank you very much for your long time, which shows the importance of these discussions. We've heard everything you've said. Thank you so much. Much appreciated. Bye-bye now.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to highlight that there was a question that was raised. Sorry, let me get my camera. A question that was raised on people not knowing who is an authorized distributor, wholesaler, and so on. The list is on the SAHPRA website. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Mama. Don't forget my advice. Grandchildren will help. Okay.
I hear you, Chair.
Okay. Members,
good day.
What time are we now? It's 20 to 1. I wanted just to give you this background that my office has, through Ms. Vuyo Kazmachalamba, has actually agreed with the pressures of the other province to start our next meeting at 3:30. The challenge is to do it much earlier than that. So I was going to request the following: if we could give Honorable Wilson a chance to say what she wanted to say. But since it would be a difficult topic, we have not heard and thought about it. We have two options. Either after listening to Honorable Wilson, we take a break and come back at 2 o'clock to deliberate on that matter, or we take a break until 3:30 and think about it and schedule it. Because in her input, she was alluding it may be a thing that needs to be processed with the office of the House Chair. But let me then give an option while you are thinking about, do we, after her input, take a break, come back at 2 and deal with the matter, or we break right until we start at 3:30 with the Department of Health Gauteng? Before she can
Sorry,
speak,
Chair.
yeah.
Sheikh Imam, Chair.
Sorry, I'm first before Imam, Honorable Imam. I just want to ask, Chair, I wanted to talk on how we engage one another in front of visitors. I definitely need to talk about that situation because things are not going right, and you are there, Chairperson. We need to engage on how we deal with one another, or especially during the question time. Please, I need to engage members on that. We can't go on like this. Thank you.
Before Honorable Wilson speaks, I also see a hand of Honorable Imam Sheikh.
Yeah, thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, Chairperson. I think what is very important, I sit here as a very frustrated member to conduct my oversight, because I can tell you that most of my questions were not adequately responded to. And the problem I think we need to have is, Chair, we need a meeting, and I think regularly, maybe once every quarter or once every 6 months, just the portfolio committee itself, not inviting anybody else, to deliberate on how we conduct ourselves, how we do our oversight and a whole host of things. So I think that's basically what the purpose of Honorable Wilson's calling for this is to set up a day which you can look at your available dates and things where we have one, and we can engage for 2 or 3 hours on what better mechanisms how we could do better oversight and achieve a lot more than we are achieving. I think that's the purpose. So I think once Honorable Wilson addresses us, I think we should then just adjourn that until we find a date that we could discuss it extensively. Thank you.
Okay, but let me then still give Honorable Wilson that so that we can be having that as a parting shot, just to say it in her own words, because she's with us. She can express the way she would want to express, and then we can note what you are saying, as maybe you're already seconding what she's saying. Honorable Wilson, let me give you this space now.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you for allowing me to have this time after the meeting. I know people are tired, but there are issues here that are raising themselves with regards to this portfolio committee time and time again. And I'm going to list some of our concerns and why I believe that we need to have a in-house portfolio committee to address some of these concerns. And the reason why I raised the issue of the chair of chairs is because I think we also need him to come in and explain to us exactly what is expected of us as a committee, because I think there are people in this committee who have no idea. I think there are people in this committee who have never read the rules and regulations with regards to how a portfolio meeting should be conducted, how it should be managed, how people are supposed to conduct themselves. So in brief, Chair, I'm going to tell you what our concerns are, and I know that there are a lot of members of this portfolio committee who will share those concerns with me. And amongst those are tiniest notifications of events and oversights. We are busy people. We have engagements with stakeholders outside of this portfolio committee, and getting proper notification and timeless notifications on events, and that includes oversights, is critical. It's not happening. Receiving our presentations timelessly. If they do not arrive on time and we do not get sufficient time to interrogate them in order to question, we have a problem. What do we do as a portfolio committee? Responses to correspondence. I have written to you, Chair, in the past, and I know lots of other members of this portfolio committee have forwarded correspondence to you with questions and requests, to which we never get a response. That is not acceptable. I also know that various stakeholders who have approached me have also sent correspondence with regards to meeting with the portfolio committee. They too have had no response. I'm very glad today that you have given us time to spend with SAHPRA, and that we will have a longer time to have with the Gauteng presentation this afternoon. This is a critical part of our oversight. We must have time. 1 hour for a presentation, 2 hours for a presentation is insufficient. We must have 3 or 4 hours per presentation to examine, cross-examine, and cross-question the presenters. Reading of correspondence in the meetings. A couple of weeks ago, when we had the chairperson read the correspondence of the EFF and a request made by their chief whip, and that was wonderful. I think we need to have all correspondence that is written to this portfolio committee via the chair read in the meetings, Chair, because we cannot address matters if we're not aware of what those matters are, and that correspondence is kept under the belt. Issuing of press releases without this discussion of the content of those press releases going out in the name of the portfolio committee with no discussions with the portfolio committee is wrong. It is out of line as far as I'm concerned, and I know that other members of this portfolio committee will agree with me. We are in the middle of a pandemic. We as a portfolio are being held truly accountable, and we have to hold accountable. We need a plan of action going forward. We need a program. We need to know exactly what's happening when, and we need to meet on a more regular basis, even if it is just the portfolio committee itself to discuss issues. We play a very, very pivotal role in this crisis, and I don't think we are being given sufficient time to deal with issues as and when they arrive. Getting people, and SAHPRA has already said to us today, we had presentations for annual reports last year from a couple of the entities. SAHPRA is one of the organizations who should be presenting the annual reports to us. And yet they tell us today that they've actually never been asked to. That is a vital part of our role as a portfolio committee. And the fact that they haven't even been asked, we haven't been advised when they will be presenting their annual reports, amongst others, is very concerning. This should be part of a program. And the other thing that I'm concerned is we do not spend enough time as a portfolio committee going on recent reports and visits where we have made firm recommendations for things to happen. These things are minuted, recommendations are made in those minutes and reports, and we do not visit them for another year until they come back before the portfolio again, by which time nothing has been done. We need to find a way to address that, Chair. And these are some of the concerns I am raising now, and I'm pretty sure that other members of the portfolio committee will substantially add on to my list. That's a brief list of what I am of our concerns as the Democratic Alliance are now, and that we need to have addressed. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Honorable Wilson, may I request that you also finish that with me in writing? I can also assist to process some of them. Some of them it may just be an oversight. I had requested our secretary that letter that was received from the Honorable Chief Whip of the EFF, which we flighted on our meeting anyway. I said, please, can you make this copy to all members? So it might be an oversight, which you can always improve on. And the issue of all entities have to be scheduled. They were supposed to be for annual reports. So that also might be an administrative oversight. But may I request that you Let me process, because there may be certain things that I might have to respond to. But I agree, maybe the starting point on that day in that meeting will also be to invite the House Chair, and maybe spending with us the first hour of that 4 hours might be helpful, or the whole 4 hours. Okay, I'll take that up in that regard. May I make this announcement, honorable members, if we are going to? The minister is available, let me check. The minister is available this week to come and make a presentation to us on Friday, this coming Friday on the 5th, the meeting starting at 1:30 to 3:30. That is the slot he has, 2 hours. I will check if you can push him to more than that. But the main topic that we're not going to be asking him from A to Z, is specifically going to be sharing with us the update on the vaccine rollout plan. That is the more critical. If there's a member here who's saying, no, please let him tell us about when is he going to start breeding the goats and sheep, then let me hear that separately. But for now, we will be asking him to come and share with us the update on the vaccine rollout plan from 1:30 to 3:30. We'll still send you a formal invitation and a notice, but can you note that now, because his office has just confirmed this Friday, 1:30 to 3:30. If you do allow me, members, can we then take a break until 3:30? We reconvene to listen and discuss with the leadership of the Gauteng Department of Health. Thank you very much.
But Chairperson, you didn't respond to me, because I wanted to talk on what happened during this SAHPRA presentation, to say, honorable members, like for example, Honorable Munyai gave us an extra information that we did not. It was a presentation of its own kind. We don't need that. If it's question time, let us ask question. And it's not for us to protect, not to answer on behalf of the people who are here for us. So even in Gauteng, when they are coming, he will be doing that. We don't expect that. We'll keep on doing point of orders if he continues doing that. We don't, it's not supposed to be that way, Chairperson. It's not for ANC. This is not an ANC committee. It's our committee, and it consists
we
of
never
all
said it's an ANC committee. We never said it's an ANC
I'm
committee.
not talking to you, I'm talking to the chair. I'm talking to the
Never
chairperson.
said the ANC committee. Chair, can you please note me?
I'm talking to the chairperson.
Honorable Dr. Thembe
Can the
Gwayo.
chairperson address me? I'm not talking to you. Sorry.
Honorable Dr. Thembe Gwayo, in the input of Honorable Wilson, among other things she's saying, that she would like us to get some sort of orientation input by the chair of chairs. Let us leave that to that process. If you would agree.
Thank you so much.
You might have to rehash it when the honorable, because I will write to the House chair of chairs, but as he comes in, I will also invite members to then indicate where are the points of clarity that we need to get him to assist us on. I wanted to leave that without addressing you. Thanks. Okay, let's take a break, honorable members, till log in earlier than 3:30. I suppose we'll use the same way of logging in, honorable members. Let's not be late for that meeting. Thanks. The meeting is adjourned for now.